Hello friends, Stobbie here. I wanted to present a quick video condensing the lessons learnt from my previous failed Long War the Chosen campaign. Just bear in mind that this is not intended to be a definitive how-to on beating Long War the Chosen. That is coming later, but rather these are the main lessons I've learned from this last campaign that I'm looking forward to put into the next campaign. As ever, please like, subscribe, and perform an eldritch ritual to the YouTube algorithm. At the time of recording, I think Mars is in retrograde, which means that the Chaos God Khorne is currently the keeper of the algorithm. So obviously, as we all know, be sure to use an obsidian sacrificial dagger, which has tasted the blood of your enemies, and your intended sacrifice should ideally be performed in the light of a waxing blood moon. Right, let's get into it. The biggest lesson I learned is that Long War of the Chosen is a marathon. But unlike a marathon, you can't pace yourself to preserve energy. You need to keep sprinting the whole way through. It was a chosen assault that ended my last run, and I wasn't able to prevent it because I foolishly had all my best soldiers out infiltrating for other missions. Also, I wasn't hammering missions as much as possible right from the start of the campaign to maximize XP gain, which would have allowed me to assault the Chosen before they assaulted me. Looking back, I realize in retrospect that I wasn't doing the three most important things to maximize soldier XP. Bear in mind that if, like me, you are playing on veteran difficulty, which is the one just below legend, you can expect the first Avenger assault mission to pop around the beginning of November. As you can see here, the hunter is about to probably hit me at the end of this month to start the Avenger assault, meaning that it's a race to accumulate as much XP as possible to get 3 soldiers up to 304 XP. So what does this mean? It means that we shouldn't leave high-ranking soldiers in base just because their partner might be injured. Get that soldier out there to get XP, especially if the infiltration timer for the mission in question is shorter than the time his bondmate is injured for. We go to the Guerrilla Tactics School and look at the new combat tactics. Wet work gives 100% experience gained from kills. At base, I think you get 1 XP per kill. So getting it double to 2 might not seem very much, but bear in mind you're only trying to get to 304 XP. And across the amount of missions that a soldier can do, the double XP from kills adds up very quickly, especially for the killy classes like Reapers and Rangers and Gunners. Lastly, don't turn down missions where you think that the rewards aren't especially worth it. Like if we look here, there is a jailbreak here, for example, and I haven't sent a squad out. I very well could have. So don't make the mistake of thinking, okay, in this country I don't need any more resistance members or any more recruits. Especially later on in the game, you don't need recruits because they're going to be too underleveled to be used anywhere. So you might think to yourself, the rewards here aren't worth sending out a squad. But rather, send the squad out, understanding that experience for your soldiers is a tacit reward on every single mission. And even if you might not desperately need the 1 resistance member or the 2 recruits, put a squad together and send them out. If while they are infiltrating, a more attractive mission comes along, you can always abort them and throw them into that mission that you actually want to do. One thing to bear in mind, though, is that if you are struggling to be able to level your guys fast enough to attack the Chosen before they attack you, you might have to use a counter-Chosen activity Black Ops mission to buy that extra bit of time. It's well worth it. If it means pulling out your best soldiers from even a Golden Path mission, I think it's usually worth it. And finally, if an Avenger assault is unavoidable, meaning that you get the notification that the chosen activity for the month is to assault the Avenger, you unfortunately will then need to pull every single one of your extracting missions out. Abort all of them. You're going to need all of your best soldiers with all of your best gear to be able to defend the Avenger from the Chosen. And typically by about, I would say, December on a campaign that's going reasonably well, you should have been able to infiltrate and kill all of the Chosen, at which point that threat to the campaign isn't really present anymore, and you can focus on managing the Doom counter. I also realized that I should have been far more proactive in managing the Avatar Project Doom counter. Now, I did learn that once the countdown triggers, it can be interrupted by completing missions that would lower the Doom counter. Although note that the covert ops to reduce Avatar Project does take a few pips off of the Doom counter, but if the actual counter with the days starts counting down and you complete this, it doesn't actually interrupt it. To take pips off the Doom counter, like I said, you can do those covert ops, Golden Path missions, story missions. This is the Advent Black site. Headquarters assaults to liberate countries. I think also take a few pips off the Doom counter. And finally, if I were to research this and have it pop, that facility lead, as you can see here, complete it. And it shows you where the alien facility has been discovered. Let's see, here we have West Africa, which unfortunately I haven't made contact with that country yet. However, every facility lead that you crack has a different location. So you may well be lucky and have the facility be in a country that you've already made contact in. I have found that after about September, you will probably have all 4 of the enemy facilities active at the same time. And in my experience, each facility adds 1 pip to the Doom counter every month. So it can go up by up to 4. Sometimes I feel like it's even gone up as much as 6 within a single month. But I think that would be 1 from each facility and then 2 from a dark event, which is unfortunate, but it does happen. The main thing to remember is you have to actively manage and attack the Avatar Project Doom counter. Admittedly, defending against the Chosen is your first priority, but as soon as you have them handled, you need to throw your assets and your resources to getting ahead of the Avatar Project. Right, let's talk about Haven management. Now, Haven management is its entire skill set that we can go into in another video. In fact, I will cover this fully once I feel comfortable to do a complete guide to Long War the Chosen. But just to condense the lessons I took from my last playthrough, when it comes to research, resistance comms is the very first thing that I took. This is what allows us to make contact with the second country as soon as you start. So that I always do absolutely first. And then I immediately make contact with the second haven and then make contact with the third haven as soon as possible after that, noting that you have 3 contacts potentially to take advantage of right in the beginning. When I make contact with a new haven, let's see here, here's one of the newer ones, Western Europe. When you make contact with a new haven, you will have between 4 or 6 resistance members. What I like to do is to put 4 into recruit and the remaining ones either on supply or intel or hiding, depending on whether I'm looking to pick up missions there or whether I'm trying to squeeze a bit of extra supplies out of them. Typically, I have 2 of my havens fully on intel gathering, and if I can spare the scientists, I'll put 2 scientists across them, or at least just 1 if I'm focusing 1. Like in this situation here, I would be focusing on South Africa because I've got 13 resistance members all on intel, and advanced strength is 1 and vigilance is 1. So I would imagine that looking for missions there, I can take only the liberation missions as they pop up. And then New Indonesia, I can take all of the non-liberation missions. That way I can power level South Africa through 1, 2, 3, and 4 liberation missions to then reveal the headquarter assault mission. Now, you may well ask, oh, but surely some of these lads are faceless. How do you prevent that from happening? You put a soldier on Haven Advisory. The higher level that the soldier is decreases the percentage chance of it being a faceless. And the only other ways to reduce the faceless percentage chance is by having the soldier on advisory carry a battle scanner. And if they are a officer, I believe in this campaign I've got gunners and specialists as officers. But anyway, so yeah, higher ranking, battle scanner, and officer are the 3 ways to lower the percentage chances that you will recruit a faceless. Okay, let's talk retaliation missions. The biggest lesson that I took from my last playthrough is that sacrificing soldiers to save resistance members is absolutely not worth it. You can always recruit more resistance members for free, whereas it takes months to level up a soldier, and the supply cost to replace lost weapons and armor can be ruinous. Even if you complete a retaliation, but your resistance members take a beating, it just means that one of your havens will collect less intel or less supplies for a while they recruit more RMs. This is especially less painful later on when you have, let's say, I don't know, 6 or more havens. If one of them gets the shit kicked out of them and they lose most of their RMs, You just have them go into a recruiting cycle for a month or two, and you move your intel gathering to another country. So remember, especially on those reinforcement missions, do not overstay your welcome and allow your soldiers to die just for the benefit of one or two extra resistance members. So this is the reinforcement type of retaliation mission. In this type of mission, reinforcements start dropping down right from turn 1. After turn 1, it's 2 enemies. Then on turn 2, it's 3 enemies, 4 enemies, 5 enemies, 6 enemies, 7 enemies, right up to 8 every subsequent turn. And my recommendation is, and what I like to do, is to take a look at where my evac point is, and then find ideally high ground within 1 sprinting turn, or at most 2 turns sprinting for my soldiers, to put the majority of my soldiers and have them on Overwatch. Let's say 6 of the 8 guys. Ideally, you want rangers with hair triggers and with any abilities to improve their Overwatch. Later on in the campaign, when you have the 3 Overwatch shots in a single turn from your ranger, and potentially on your specialist, you can also take 2 Overwatch shots in the enemy turn. These missions become a lot more manageable. But until you do that, like I said, you want 6 of your troops set up specializing in Overwatch as much as you are able to. And then you have 2 essentially fast movers, either assault troopers who have the as much mobility as possible, or shinobis. And right from the start, they ignore any of the enemies that are there to be killed. They just sprint and tag all of the resistance members to get them moving back to evac. So in this situation here, I've hung around too long, and I'm in a situation where I'm facing a lot of losses. I already have wounded lads. I've got 8 enemies on the field here. And if I just end the turn, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 enemies reinforcing. So to recap, right from turn 1, the reinforcements start dropping. After the first turn, you got to deal with the Chosen, and after mopping up that first little bit of reinforcements, hopefully it won't take you more than 1 or 2 turns to take out the Chosen and keep on top of the reinforcements. All the while, your fast movers need to be running around and tagging as many resistance members as possible. All of the missions I've had, other than Assault, Haven, Avenger defense missions that have gone badly, it has been retaliation missions like this. They can go south so quickly, and you can feel like you are doing well and you're ahead of the tide of enemy reinforcements. But very quickly before you realize that, you are just drowning in enemy bodies, and you can face a squad wipe. And this is the sweep objective mission. In this one, I've already taken out the Chosen and killed a couple pods. And now it's just a case of killing the remaining pods on the map. This mission I find to be a lot easier because you don't have that excruciating time pressure. The main thing to remember, though, is at the end of your turn, the other pods that are still active on the map, unless they path into you like this, they will essentially execute one of the resistance members near them, 1 per turn. Ow. But as we can see here, I've already lost 2 enemy resistance people because I had taken 2 turns to kill the first 2 pods and the Chosen. Which leads me on to the related point that looking at your resistance havens as having resistance members, which are very important, but it's free to get them. And just accept the fact that in this type of retaliation mission, your resistance members are going to die. It sucks, it's frustrating, but once again, it's not worth getting your soldiers killed. And over the course of an entire campaign, it's going to happen. You will recover from it. It's really not such a big deal. Let's look at these 3 bloody dickheads and how to deal with them. A couple of things I've learned that are applicable to all 3, and then I've got a few lessons specific to each of them in turn. So applicable to all 3, probably one of the most important things to deal with the Chosen is these bad boys, Venom rounds. You get these after researching a project in the Proving Ground based off of the Viper autopsy. If you hit the Chosen with this, there's a 50% chance that you can affect them with poisoned, which lowers mobility. That's especially important against the assassin. It also lowers their aim. Gas grenades are also a good way of inflicting the Chosen with the poison status, especially if you prefer to have one of those soldiers using AP rounds or flechette rounds, which give extra damage against non-robotic targets. So gas grenades are good, but I prefer the rounds. Incendiary grenades are incredibly important. If you hit one of the chosen with an incendiary grenade, you'll find that it affects them with burning, which not only does damage every time they act, crucially, it means that the warlock can't use close combat specialist and the hunter can't use quick hands. It also disables the assassin's stun grenade, I want to say. So it doesn't cancel all of the secondary abilities, and the chosen are still able to attack, but the damage over time and cancelling some of their secondaries is incredibly important. Much later on in the campaign, once you've completed the Muton Elite research, you can then do this project for Dragon Rounds, which just allows you to do extra damage on hit and can set your enemies on fire. So I'm busy researching stiletto rounds here, and stiletto rounds do extra damage. I think it's +2 damage against organic enemies, and the chosen count as organic enemies, making stiletto rounds an excellent option for your soldiers that are going to be looking to do as much damage as possible in a single turn against the chosen. Throw these stiletto rounds onto a Reaper with Banish, and you can pretty much take care of most of the chosen in a single turn. When it comes to skills, probably the most important for my money in dealing with the chosen is at Tech Sergeant Vital Point Targeting. Attacks against your hollow targeted enemies deal more damage. That's +1 for the basic hollow, increases to +2 with the improved hollow. So if you consider the fact that, imagine our scenario where you have the chosen, you hit them with Vital Point Targeting, you also hit them with, where is an officer? Focus Fire. Focus Fire, pinpoint a target and grant the squad cumulative aim bonuses and +1 armor piercing on attacks against the target for the rest of the turn. So let's say you have any one of the chosen, hit them with Focus Fire, hit them with hollow targeting, ideally VPT, and then have a target like a soldier like the Reaper go in with flechette rounds and take them off the map in a single turn. The last thing to remember is that the extra crit chance and damage on crit from Talon rounds is entirely wasted on the chosen because all of them are completely immune to getting crit. Now, a quick word about the kidnap ability that all three of these assholes have. Having one of your soldiers get kidnapped is an absolute disaster. If you look at this save file here, it's November 6th. I'll probably get attacked at the end of November. And these levels that all of these guys have here, look, they haven't captured any soldiers. And it's still incredibly difficult to be able to get my soldiers leveled up to Master Sergeant to be able to attack the chosen. Which means if you get a soldier captured, you are almost certainly going to have to defend against the chosen assault. The kidnap ability for all three of these guys doesn't require line of sight, and it can be cast from across the map. It is, in a word, a bullshit. And when one of my guys get kidnapped, the typical reaction is, right, let's talk about everyone's favorite ninja bitch, the assassin. Right, so this is a pretty typical situation against the assassin. She spawned in on the previous turn, I overwatched, didn't kill the two that dropped in. And then this bitch just appeared out of stealth right under our noses in the middle of everybody and has gone into Overwatch. Now, my priorities are to strip her armor if she had any, but she'll have armor later on in the campaign. So there's no armor to worry about at least. But what I want to do is I want to hit her with hollow targeting with someone that has vital point targeting. So she'll take +2 damage on every attack. That's because I have the hollow targeter version 2. That's +1 with the regular hollow targeter. I need to go to my officer and hit her with focus fire, although yes, this is an officer that I misleveled and gave Oscar Mike instead of focus fire. Now, the thing with the assassin is that when you attack her, she can either move towards you, she usually moves towards your closest unit, or she can attack. She can only attack on your turn if she's already standing next to your person. So in this situation, let's break her Overwatch. actually going to pop the overdrive so I can get a little bit further away from her. The name of the game is just to kite her and pull her in the direction while taking shots at her. Ideally, I would want a Reaper with Banish and needle rounds or flechette rounds for the extra damage versus organics, but my Reaper is actually busy infiltrating. So if I attack her now, she will take a shot against the mech. So we move the mech as the closest unit away from her. And where's my Ranger? In this squad, the Ranger has center mass, and I forget which type of rounds he has. I think it's flechette rounds. But I can't even see her, so I'm going to need her to move. Okay, so now Zaitsev could actually set her on fire, which is a pretty good option. How far does this go? 7 tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Although honestly, I would have preferred to attack her from further than this. This is not going to be ideal. But the fire, I've screwed it up. So now I'm just trying to think who is the right person to take the first shot at her. Carly with rapid fire could actually be a good option. There's a lot to think about here, as you can see. Ah, yes. Okay. Let's set her on fire with the first action. I have an incendiary grenade. I'm surprised that in this save file I don't have any venom rounds or gas grenades. That is something I'll always get as soon as possible, because lowering her mobility is the most important thing. I do note that I have acid grenades, which is interesting. And she failed to catch fire. Oh, there we go. There, she's caught fire. She can still attack me. So I can do 7 to 11 here, or 12 to 21, and we need 37 damage. So let's take a sniper shot. 8 to 12 damage. She's not standing next to one of my soldiers, so she can't actually attack now. She has to move. Let's see who she moves next to, and then move that person away from her. Okay, so she is going for my... Does she have lightning reflexes? Because Overwatch might have been worth it then. Yes, she has moving target, so it's impossible to hit her. And then even if she didn't have moving target, she would probably have ablative plating, which is extra armor on missed shots, which is super annoying. Okay, let's just look at the damage breakdown. 5 to 8 damage plus 5 crit. Critical damage is plus 5. Bear in mind that you can't crit them. So the previous sniper shot from the mag rifle did 8 to 12. This is doing 5 to 8. Because of impact compensation. So what we need to do now is to calculate whether we can finish her before she takes another attack. 7 to 12. 4 to 6 plus 7 to 12. But I need to move my Ranger away. So here's what we're going to do. I'll move him here. Now the mech can launch grenades for some damage, and if we're lucky, a bit of explosive damage as well. I just need to get her into range where I can one-shot her. One thing I failed to do was to make sure that she can't reach any of my people who have already ended their turn. Oh, this is great here. I can cyclic fire 386 shots. It counts as one action. Alternatively, I can rupture. 50% bonus to critical hit, but that does nothing. Ensure the target takes, I think it's plus 3 damage from all attacks. So in this situation, I'm better off using cyclic fire. 3 shots of cyclic fire. But unfortunately now, that means I need to move my Ranger away so he doesn't get to do his damage. If all 3 of these cyclic fire shots hit, I might be able to take her out. And now, so if I had taken focus fire, it would have been 86, then 91, then 96, because you get plus 5 chance to hit on each subsequent shot with focus fire. But look at impact compensation, taking all the damage away. But we just need to do 8 more. Oof. Okay, so she is now stood next to one of my resistance members. But 2 rapid fires, they would both need to do 4 damage. So that resistance member is going to get chopped to the face. Look at that. Dodge and a graze. Of course, it sucks losing resistance members, but as we've said previously with retaliation missions, resistance members are very much a resource, and you can generate more of them for free. Okay, so generally speaking, this is the tactic you want to use against the assassin. Just kite her around and take shots at her, maximizing the damage you take. If you get lucky and she doesn't get impact compensation, it becomes a lot easier. The only thing I would have done here had I made better choices, I would have taken focus fire on my specialist, and I would have had venom rounds on probably my gunner or one of my sharpshooters. So that's the assassin. So I don't actually have a save file readily available to show you the process of how to take down the warlock, but it's actually a great deal easier. When you shoot him, he moves away. You just have to keep running after him. He tends to not have impact compensation, so you can take assault troopers, ideally, that have the double shot, and just run up into him and just pump damage into him. The thing I did want to point out, though, about the warlock is that he is hard countered by the hazmat vest, so he can't set your soldiers on fire with his fire ability, and he can't mind control them if you have mind shields. So if you find that you are primarily fighting the warlock, or really, it's just a good bit of practice, a good general practice, to have as many mind shields as you can, probably 8, and hazmat vests 8, so that if you know you're going into a mission against the warlock, give everybody mind shields, give everybody hazmat vests, and it largely neuters what he can do to you. The last piece of the puzzle for the warlock is the incendiary grenade. By setting the warlock on fire, he can't use close combat specialists, so that means your assaults and your shinobis can run in to damage him without taking overwatch fire. And he can't use... I think he might still be able to... Yes, it only disables close combat specialist. But I think setting him on fire means that he might not even be able to use Mind Scorch. He will still be able to call in reinforcements, but we work our way around that. The key thing with the warlock is you always want to have at least one other enemy advent active on the field, because if you don't, he will summon reinforcements, which just adds more enemy bodies on the field, which in the tougher missions you absolutely cannot have. So try to have the least dangerous enemy alien on the field, like a little trooper. Leave him alone. Let the warlock do the mind meld. Then on your following turn, when you're ready to attack the warlock, then you kill that soldier, set fire to the warlock, strip his armor, and just try to burst him down in a single turn. As always, the best way of dealing with the Chosen, any Chosen really, is with a Reaper that has Banish. Fire at a target until you run out of ammo or it dies. Each shot has 20 aim less than the previous one, reveals the Reaper. However, you can offset that minus 20 with base high accuracy, a scope, focus fire, as we've said, and hollow targeting. It's still one of the best ways to take out any of the Chosen. The specialist weapons I also want to give a shout out to real quick. The Shadow Keeper is just useful for putting one of your troops back into stealth. Where is it? The Hunter's Axe is great for a Shinobi. It gets you an extra attack for no action. And the Bolt Caster. The Bolt Caster has 20% chance to stun a Chosen for 2 turns when it's at its magnetic level. At its base level, it can stun them for 1 turn and 2 turns at the magnetic and plasma levels. You do only get 1 shot, then you have to reload, but I would highly recommend using the Bolt Caster against the Chosen. And finally, this absolute ball bag, the Hunter. It used to be that I hated the Assassin the most until I figured out how to take her down, but now I think that this Hunter is probably my least favorite of the Chosen to go up against. His accuracy is huge, his mobility is huge. He's going to do almost guaranteed damage to you all the time. Now, when it comes to fighting the Hunter, tactically, I tend to not worry about cover against him really at all, because he can grapple into a position where he can shoot at you from a flank almost at all times. It's really, really scary. What I find super effective against him, though, is a Templar. The Templar, of course, has the ability, after taking an action, to deploy their shield, which gives them ablative hit points. most of the time that ablative hit points can actually absorb the hunter shot without too much damage. So if you're at all able, take out a Templar or even a mech which you have specced into the defensive abilities, and you'll find them to be quite good against the hunter. Same as with the other two chosen, poison and fire work exceptionally well. The only thing to make sure is that within reason, depending on the tactical situation, you want to sprint at the hunter and just put him under pressure. If you are close enough that you are forcing him to use his pistol rather than the big rifle, you are doing well. Just make sure you don't aggro 3 pods trying to run at him. Worst case scenario against this lad is he's on the other end of a very busy, very full map, and you have to spend 4, 5, 6 turns killing all the other enemies while he just keeps shooting at you. But recognize that if you're in that situation, focus on killing the other enemies. He is only one source of damage per turn after all, so it's not worth aggroing another 12 sources of damage just to get to him. And so what are the other lessons I took from this campaign? For me, the major lesson from the failed campaign was that I was far too hesitant on taking on alien facility sabotage missions.
Setting course for Sector 2, Australia.
And in future, I will be much, much more willing to send 8 or 10 of my soldiers in against even upwards of 45 enemies. The main reason for that is that bearing in mind the distinction between time-sensitive and non-time-sensitive missions. The biggest missions like headquarters assaults, alien facilities, the Black Site, the Alien Forge, and the Waterworld campaign-ending mission is that they are not time-sensitive. This is the same as those supply missions. If you are in a mission that is not time-sensitive, take direct fire soldiers like sharpshooters. Basically, you want to boom, boom, and bang, bang. You boom, boom with the technical and the grenadiers, and you bang, bang with the rangers and the sharpshooters. You get yourself into a good position, aggro the first pod, and then fall back, let them come towards you, and fighting one pod at a time. What you don't do is push forward into more of them, aggroing more and more enemies. In a mission like this, probably if I infiltrate up to, let's say, 150%, you're probably looking at 35 enemies, which means that you have, I'd say, 4 to 5 pods, probably 2 pods of 2 drones each patrolling around the map in a circular fashion, with 3 pods, 1 big one, which can be up to 12 enemies in it, and then 2 smaller pods that tend to be between 4 to 8 soldiers each. You ideally want to just pick off those drones, but best case, one of the smaller patrols first. Take them down, move back, let the enemy move into your overwatch. And finally, with regards to mission types, secure network towers. I learned a lot about these types of missions in the last campaign. Early on in the last campaign, I sent a squad out, not because it was too early, but because my squad composition was wrong. I think I had 2 grenadiers and a couple of direct fires. This setup I tend to find far more successful. A specialist and a gunner. The specialist I will use once I've taken care of the first few pods to try to move himself into position to hack the comms console to stun all the enemies. What you can also do is, let's say, replace the sharpshooter with a shinobi if you really want to, have him stay in stealth so he can hack the objective, but I prefer to have all 5 of my soldiers shooting. Better than a shinobi for me is a reaper with a ghost grenade, or perhaps a gunner who has ghost grenade, or really any piece of utility that allows you to put your specialist back into stealth after you've killed the first couple pods. Kill the first few pods, run the specialist up into the building under stealth, and then you can hack at your leisure and mop up the resistance. A technical is super important for those first 2 big pods with an EXO suit and 2 rockets, and then of course a ranger with rapid reaction and a gunner with cyclic fire and hail of bullets and shredder. Super, super important. This type of squad setup has allowed me to do a number of these radio tower missions with no problems whatsoever. And so, just to go back to the last final moments of the previous campaign, in conclusion, I would have to say that, as with the end of so far every failed Long War of the Chosen campaign I've ever had, I'm left with a sense of excitement at starting the new campaign and implementing the lessons I've learned. My next campaign will be up on the YouTube channel soon, and if you wish to add your soldier as more meat for the grinder, submit a bin file in the Long War of the Chosen Soldier Submissions Discord channel, and I'll add you. Link to the Discord is in the video description, and as ever, thank you all for watching this far and hope you enjoyed. I'm Stobbie, thanks for watching, and I'll see you